You know, the American Civil War is honestly one of the most brutal and important chapters in U.S. history. From 1861 to 1865, it was the North, the Union, against the South, the Confederacy, and in the end, somewhere between 750,000 and 850,000 people died. More Americans killed than in every other U.S. war combined up until the late 20th century. The war kept the country together, ended legal slavery, and basically turned everything upside down: the economy, society, politics, the works. If you look at solid sources like Encyclopedia Britannica and James McPherson's book Battle Cry of Freedom, which won the Pulitzer, by the way, this thing had been brewing for decades. Endless arguments about slavery, states' rights, the economy. The North was industrializing fast. 22 million people, factories, railroads, free labor. The South had 9 million total, including 4 million enslaved, and their whole world revolved around huge cotton and tobacco plantations. By 1860, the average wealthy white Southerner was twice as rich as the average Northerner, and 3/5 of the richest people in the country lived down south. Everything exploded after the 1860 election. Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, won. He was against spreading slavery into new territories, though he wasn't calling to abolish it where it already existed. But for the South, that was enough. They figured Lincoln in power equals slavery's doom. South Carolina seceded first in December 1860, then Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. In February 1861, they formed the Confederate States of America, with Jefferson Davis as president. After the attack on Fort Sumter, 4 more states jumped in: Virginia, Arkansas, Tennessee, and North Carolina. April 12, 1861, it officially started. Confederates under Beauregard shelled Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor for 34 hours. Nobody died in the bombardment, but the Union garrison under Major Robert Anderson surrendered. Lincoln immediately called for 75,000 volunteers, declared a naval blockade of southern ports, they called it the Anaconda Plan, and suspended habeas corpus in some places. The South started raising armies, too. Everyone thought it would be a quick war. But then came July 1861 and the First Battle of Bull Run, or First Manassas. Confederates under Johnston and Stonewall Jackson smashed Irvin McDowell's Union troops. The Northerners panicked and ran all the way back to Washington. Casualties weren't insane, about 4,900 total, but it hit everyone like a brick. This wasn't going to be short or easy. Meanwhile, out west, Ulysses Grant was already moving along the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. 1862 turned out to be the bloodiest and most decisive early year. In the Western Theater, Grant took Fort Henry on February 6th, then Fort Donelson on the 16th, the North's first big wins. At Donelson, he demanded unconditional surrender, and that nickname stuck: Unconditional Surrender Grant. Those victories opened the rivers for Union gunboats and basically gave the North most of Kentucky and Tennessee. Then came Shiloh, April 6th to 7th in Tennessee. Confederate General Albert Sidney Johnston surprised Grant's army. Johnston got killed on day 1. Day 2, Grant got reinforcements from Don Carlos Buell, counterattacked, and pushed the Confederates back. Total casualties? Over 23,700. That was twice the number of deaths in the entire Revolutionary War. The whole country was stunned. Everyone realized this war was going to demand everything. Back east, George McClellan launched the Peninsula Campaign in spring 1862, over 100,000 men marching up the Virginia Peninsula toward Richmond. McClellan was a master organizer, but insanely cautious. Robert E. Lee, just named commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, hit back hard with the 7 Days battles, June 25th to July 1st. Confederates lost over 20,000, Union about 15,800, but Lee pushed McClellan away from the capital. It saved Richmond, but it was the bloodiest week in American history so far. In August, Lee and Jackson crushed John Pope at Second Bull Run, 2nd Manassas. Feeling bold, Lee invaded Maryland in September. September 17th, Antietam, Sharpsburg, the single bloodiest day ever. Almost 23,000 casualties in just 12 hours. Tactically a draw, but strategically a Union win because it stopped the invasion. That gave Lincoln the opening he needed. On September 22nd, he issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, effective January 1, 1863, declaring that all enslaved people in Confederate territory would be thenceforward, and forever free. The war turned into a moral fight against slavery, and the Union started recruiting black soldiers. Eventually, almost 180,000 served. December 1862, Ambrose Burnside's disaster at Fredericksburg. Union troops charged straight into entrenched Confederates on Marye's Heights and got slaughtered. Over 12,600 Union losses to 5,300 Confederate, one of the most one-sided beatings of the war. Meanwhile, out west, they captured New Orleans in April 1862, the South's biggest city and main port, and kept pushing to control the Mississippi. 1863 was the turning point. In the East, Lee pulled off his greatest victory at Chancellorsville in May, beat a Union army almost twice his size under Joseph Hooker, but he lost Stonewall Jackson, accidentally shot by his own men. Still, Lee felt confident enough to invade Pennsylvania. Gettysburg, July 1st through 3rd, the biggest battle of the war, about 51,000 casualties. On day 3, Pickett's charge failed spectacularly. That was the high watermark of the Confederacy. And on the exact same day, July 4th, Grant captured Vicksburg after a long siege. The Mississippi was now completely Union-controlled, and the Confederacy was cut in half. Lincoln said, "The Father of Waters again goes unvexed to the sea." In 1864, Lincoln made Grant overall commander. Grant switched to a strategy of relentless pressure and total war. In the East, the Overland Campaign, Wilderness, Spotsylvania, Cold Harbor. At Cold Harbor, they lost nearly 6,000 men in just an hour. Total for the campaign, around 55,000 Union casualties and 33,000 Confederate. Then Grant settled in for a 9-month siege of Petersburg. Out west, Sherman took Atlanta on September 2nd, huge morale boost for Lincoln's re-election. Then came Sherman's march to the sea through Georgia, tearing up railroads, factories, supplies, total psychological and economic destruction. He took Savannah on December 21st and gave it to Lincoln as a Christmas present. 1965, it all ended fast. Grant broke through at Petersburg in early April. Lee abandoned Richmond and tried to escape west. April 9th, at Appomattox Courthouse, Lee surrendered to Grant. The other Confederate armies gave up soon after. The very last ones surrendered in Galveston, Texas on June 2nd. The human cost was horrifying. Roughly 2% of the entire population gone. The Emancipation Proclamation plus the 13th Amendment, ratified December 1865, ended slavery forever. The 14th and 15th Amendments gave citizenship and voting rights to black men. But Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, fell apart. Jim Crow laws, segregation, the betrayal of real equality. In the end, the war decided America would stay one indivisible nation. It wrecked the South's plantation system, sped up northern industry, and strengthened the federal government. Like McPherson wrote, it was a new birth of freedom, finally living up to the promises in the Declaration of Independence. But the debates over race, memory, states' rights, they're still going strong today.